good. Okay, welcome everyone to today's seminar. So again, our seminars are sponsored by AHRQ Magic and GSA DigitalGov University. And today our seminar is on professional branding, brand you for the leader within. So as a disclaimer, no statement in the seminar should be construed as an official position of AHRQ, HHS, or any other federal agency. So just a brief introduction here. The Federal Leadership and Professional Development Seminar Series is a cross-agency series on leadership and professional development topics. It's a by government, for government seminar series with employees from across the government. Our last seminar, I think we had 54 departments, agencies, and branches attending. So it really is a very broad seminar with all GS levels. Our last seminar, we had GS5 through SES. So it's really meant for everyone, very broad audience, broad topics, and the speakers are experts from the government. Our frequency is every month or two. We have these seminars that can be attended in person or remotely. As always, there's no cost to attendees or payment to speaker, and this program is not funded, so lots of volunteers here, and again, the sponsors are AHRQ Magic and GSA DigitalGov University. So our goals for the seminar series are to share federal leader expertise and lessons learned, also provide free training since training resources are always limited, and bring individuals together and foster intra and interagency connections, collaborations, and sharing. So just a few quotes here. It's been really successful. I've had a lot of folks get a lot out of these seminars. Right now, we're over 3,300 subscribers across the government on our listserv. One thing I mentioned during the last seminar is we have started the development of a member database. So you'll see in red here, there's a link. If you would like to join the member database, please do go to this link and input your information. It'll ask you for information such as your name, your email, agency, position, and expertise. Whatever you enter will go into our member database and will be shared with the other seminar listserv members via email to the listserv address. Also, that same survey link, you can provide suggestions for opportunities if you would like to be involved in a planning committee, suggesting topics, presenting, etc. So again, I'll have the survey link at the end as well, but please do complete the survey. At the end of this seminar, everyone will receive an automatic survey that comes out just asking you how you like the seminar and rating the seminar, and I'll have some post-seminar discussion questions. This link will also be in that survey as well. So as always, when you're listening to the seminar today, think about your biggest lesson learned. And if you're in person, there's a leaf you can write it on. Otherwise, in the post-seminar evaluation survey, it'll ask you for your biggest lesson learned and what you plan on doing with what you learned today. Our next seminar is coming up. We have one on best practices in strategic planning and another on setting up a mentoring program. For all seminars, registration will open about a week prior to the seminar. And as I mentioned, so here is the information for signing up for the listserv. Again, here's the member database survey and the volunteer survey link, and also the YouTube channel where you can find all the recordings for the previous seminars since February of last year is on here as well. And I'm going to keep this slide up while I introduce our speaker today. So our speaker today is Reginald Gant. He is joining us today from the Social Security Administration, where he serves as a human resources specialist in the Office of Learning, Strategy, and Workforce Development. Reginald brings to the table over 15 years of federal government expertise. As a member of the Career Employee and Leadership Development Team, he oversees professional development services and is responsible for employee training of the entire agency and all of its over 65,000 employees. He and his wife are the proud parents of 4 children ranging in ages from 18 down to 3 months, and his life motto is serve to be a blessing to others. Please join me in welcoming Reginald Gant.
Well, good afternoon. How is everyone? It's a pleasure to be here. Kim, I first have to First and foremost, thank you for this opportunity to allow me to come all the way down here to Rockville. I got to enjoy some beautiful scenery on the way up from Baltimore, Maryland, and this is a beautiful building, so I appreciate this opportunity. When the invitation came, I was excited. I jumped on it right away, and it's an extreme honor to be presenting before you all and you all virtually today. I'm going to talk a little bit about branding yourself because I believe that everyone has a leader within. Sometimes we just need some guidance and some coaching on how we can best brand ourselves as leaders. So you did an amazing job with the introduction. I really don't have to say too much about that. So I'll just go straight into my why. This why is actually missing our newest baby. Sometimes when it's a little difficult, and it's not just for me, but for all of us, when it's a little challenging to get out of the bed, you know, when you don't really feel like it, when you get discouraged, when you get a little, you know, tired, a little weary, a little worn down, you just need to remind yourself of why you are doing what you do. So for me, it's my wife. It's our 4 children. That's our oldest daughter. She's in her freshman year of college. And then our sons are 8, 3, and 3 months, 3.5 months, almost 4 months now. So whenever I get tired, whenever I'm stressed out, you know, I always just take a look at my family, and it's just a strong reminder of why. And that can be the same for anybody that's under the sound of my voice right now. Just always remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, and it's a reason to keep going. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about branding. What is it? Why is it important? All the way down to brand recognition, brand management. Why, you know, should I even care about branding? What is it? And more. So just to start off with some quick facts. 45% of a brand's image is what it says and how it says it. So for those folks in the room, I'll ask a quick question, and I just want to see who's aware. What's Nike's slogan? Just do it, right? We all know it. That's 100% unanimous in the room. And why is it that we know Nike's slogan? Even if we don't support Nike, Nike has done such an amazing job of branding their slogan over the years that we know it, whether we support them or not. 64% of people say that shared values are the main reason they support a brand. So let me just share this example. When it comes to receiving phenomenal customer service, would we rather take our business to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's? Chick-fil-A, right? What is it? What is it about Chick-fil-A that makes it so special, right? What are those 2 magical words that they always say to you no matter what's happening around you? After they give you your meal, you say thank you. What do they say? My pleasure, right? 64% of people say that the main reason that they even identify with a brand, or whether they have a relationship with the brand or not, is because of the shared values. So whether we believe it or not, whether we want to think about it or not, we are already brands in ourselves. And I'll get to that in just a second. So for those of us in the room, what's this brand in the top left corner? Pepsi? Top right corner? Anybody recognize that one? Uber. Bottom left? Google. Bottom right? Starbucks. Now, these brands don't have words associated, right? All it is imagery, is pictures. But we know exactly who they are because they've done an amazing job of sharing who they are with us over the years. So the questions that I want you to think about throughout this session is, what is branding? What's the purpose of it? And actually, branding is a lot of things, but to break it down for simplicity and the sake of time, it's effectively marketing yourself. That's what you really want to do. It's how you show up in the workplace when it's time for the team to come together and it's time for projects and assignments to get done. Branding is how you show up. It's the impression that you leave or that you make on others. And lastly, the most important part of this is that it's really your name and reputations on steroids. And I was reading an article over the weekend, and branding is this. It's not what we think we are. Branding is what other people tell other people as to who they believe that we are. So I can think that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, but that's not branding. Branding is you sharing with someone else that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. So it's our name and reputation on steroids. The purpose of branding is to show ourselves different, you know, from everyone else so that we can reach our desired objectives. So whether we know it or not, we're all a brand. And what does that mean? When our name comes up in conversation, people have certain thoughts, they have certain emotions, they have certain feelings, certain words come into play already when our name is brought up. If they see a picture of us, they can say, oh, hey, I know Reginald. He's a phenomenal presenter, right? That's my brand. Or they can say, hey, the last time that I saw Reginald, he was extremely angry. I don't really think that I want to get on his bad side. that could be a brand as well. So whether we know it or not, when our name is brought up, when our face is brought up, whether it's name or facial recognition, branding is happening. So for the sake of some humor right here, how many individuals, just by a show of hands in this room, will hire this individual to be your own personal fashion consultant? I'm getting a lot of people shaking their head in the room. Not to say that there's anything wrong with this outfit. So let me just go ahead and put that disclaimer out. If anybody has this outfit, it's a very lovely outfit, by the way. But for the sake of brand, right? When you think of fashion consulting, right? You're thinking of somebody that's fashionable. Most would argue that this is not a fashionable, item of clothing that this gentleman has on. So the reason why we wouldn't hire him to be our fashion consultant is probably because there's brand inconsistency. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. And I'd really just like to put this slide in here just for the sake of humor. So what do others think about you? Your brand could be a physical trait. Does anybody recognize this young lady right here at the bottom right corner? Can anybody tell me exactly who she is? Lucille Ball, right? What do you know about Lucille Ball? What comes to mind when you hear the name Lucy? Humor? Exactly. So the reason why I put this slide in here, I Love Lucy is actually my favorite show of all times. It was around well before I was born, but I grew up watching I Love Lucy. I absolutely love it. I've seen every single episode. I have the DVDs at home. Lucy was always known for her red hair and for always getting in trouble with her best friend Ethel, right? So why am I sharing this? Your brand could be a physical trait. Are you known as that person that's the red-haired person that sits at the end of the aisle that's always getting in trouble? That could be your brand. Or do you want to be remembered? In Lucy's case, she was the very first woman to run a major television studio. She was a 4-time Emmy Award winner. Does anybody know the name of the television studio? It was called Desilu. She was the very first woman in the U.S. history to own a major television studio. 4-time Emmy Award winner. She was nominated over 13 times. So when it comes to branding, it's about what other people think about us. So in her case, she could be known as the redhead who was always getting in trouble, or she could be known as the one who actually just broke amazing barriers, being the first female to pioneer and open the door for a lot of other women to come along behind her. So what do others think about you? That's your brand. What's the impression that you leave on others? And as you can see, these two pictures right here, the one on the left, people can either praise you in public. So that's what we want. We want the accolades. We want to be recognized. Somebody here is being, applauded for, some kind of accomplishment. That's what we want. We want the brand where we're applauded, where our achievements are meaningful and people in public are made aware of those things. Or our brand could be this right slide, and somebody's putting somebody down in private. So this is where, people are talking about us behind our backs. So which one do we really want to be known for? Our brand basically determines that. Are we going to be that individual that you can rely on? And if you can rely on me, eventually, sooner or later, you're going to praise me in public. But are we going to be that individual that's unreliable? And eventually what's going to happen? People are going to talk about you behind your backs as well. So when it comes to branding, there's 6 steps in the branding process. Number 1 is defining your goals, and you can read the rest. It comes all the way down to brand management. Because once you get to a certain level and once you think that you've really established the brand and you're comfortable with who you are and with what you've done, now brand management will be the most important part for you going forward. So when it comes to branding, you have to be goal-oriented. You have to be very specific. What exactly is it that you want to achieve? Clearly define what you want your brand to say about you. For myself, for example, when I started my agency a number of years ago, I started off in the telephone area. I took calls for 40 hours a week, but there was an individual that I had identified. He worked in the corner office. He wore nice suits. He drove a nice car, and I really wanted to know what he was doing. He had branded himself so well. I said to myself, what is it that he's doing that I need to do, because I don't want to take calls for 40 hours a week for the rest of my life. I ultimately want the office with the window and the view and everything, right? So I clearly defined a goal for myself, and my end goal was to eventually wear suits. I don't think that I want the office anymore because it comes comes with a lot of responsibility. But I still like to look nice, so I decided that, I wanted to look a certain way. I wanted to be respected a certain way at work, and I wanted my accomplishments to speak for myself. So I was very clear and specific as to what my goals were. So I had to assess where I was. And at that time, I was a GS5 on the telephones. This individual was a GS15. I knew that I couldn't get to GS15 overnight. I knew that there was a progression. So I was willing to do what it takes to get to the ultimate goal. So what I would encourage everybody to do that's listening right now, write down in your spare time, what are your aspirations? Whether it's personal or professional, it doesn't really matter. We all aspire to do something and be something else. Sometimes we just get too busy and we need to take some time to write those things down. So this diagram, if you can see it, it says what we are. And then on the other side, it says what we want to be. And all we have to do is really make that jump. And what comes with that jump? It's a leap of faith. So I took a leap of faith that, I wasn't going to be a GS5 for the rest of my career, and that eventually I would be a GS15. So we have to make that leap of faith. So I'm encouraging everybody to think about what's next for you. Write it down on paper. Begin to think about it. Begin to strategize. Begin to put it into play, and involve other people if you need to. Research involves the following. Learn how successful people effectively brand themselves. So for this individual, I actually asked him, was he interested in taking me on as a mentee? And he was, and I was fortunate because he shared a lot of information with me, which helped me in my career progression over the years. And since then, I've actually been able to turn around and do the same thing for others. And I charge us as well to do the same thing. As we learn knowledge, as we acquire information, as we get our expertise up, it's really an obligation for us to turn around and to do the same thing for those coming behind us as well. So you want to identify what other leaders are doing. How do they effectively brand themselves to get to where they are? Research also involves having difficult conversations about who you are. When is the last time we actually sat down with a colleague, and had some genuine discussion around, like, what do you really think about me? What do you really think about the work, the value that I bring to the table? When's the last time that we had this discussion with management? Again, branding is not what we think. Branding is what other people think about us. Does your manager put the same value on you that you place on yourself? When's the last time we had a conversation about that? So research will be, hey, taking somebody out to lunch, maybe after the meeting, pulling somebody aside for a few moments, just having that difficult conversation, I feel like I bring a lot to the table. What are your thoughts? What do you see that I'm strong? What do you see that I could do better to improve? That's all a part of the research process. Here's some questions that I'd like everyone to consider. Do you have a vision for your brand or your career? And this ties back into the earlier slide. Write it down. A lot of times we walk around with information in our head. And oftentimes that information in our head is going to get replaced within the next second with 10 other things that we need to do, 10 other things that we have to do. We're going to be thinking about work. We're going to be thinking about what we're going to be doing after work. But if we write something down, then we can come back to it. We can look at it over and over again. So if you have a vision for your brand or for your career or for where you see yourself next, write it down on paper. Do you have a strategy for getting to the next level? This is where mentorship comes in. As leaders, we all need mentors. And then once we get to a position where we feel comfortable, it's going to be an obligation for us to turn around and serve as mentor for somebody else as well. Is your goal position related? Do you desire to be an executive officer or SESer? At one point in time, I really thought that I really wanted to enter into the SES world. Not so much now. I love what SESers do, but I realize that's not really the lifestyle that's for me. But have you identified your goal as being a certain position? Is it a certain grade? What can you do to get there? Who do you know that's there right now? One of the things that I really encourage is for individuals to do what I call informational interviews, and that's just having conversations, having a conversation with somebody that has some kind of influence and just picking their brain. What classes did you take to get there? Who did you network with? Do you have degrees outside? Were those degrees that you obtained important in helping you climb up the ladder? You really want to have those conversations because you may find out somebody's encouraging you to get a PhD, but those that are actually in the field are saying, hey, you know what, the degree is not so much more than the network, more than the people that I know. What courses of training can prepare you to get you to the next level? Brand attributes. How would you describe yourself in one sentence? This is what you want your brand to say. what adjectives best describe you. So whatever you say are the adjectives that best describe you, hopefully line up with what other people say that you are. So for myself, I would like to say that I'm reliable, that I'm dependable, that I'm an effective communicator, that I'm a team player. That's what I believe to be true about me. But branding would be my colleagues saying the same thing. Branding would be my management saying the same thing. So when you think about yourself, what adjectives best describe you, write those down. And when you begin to have those conversations that I talked about earlier, whether it's with colleagues or management, see if those adjectives come up. See if, if we're seeing eye to eye. Sometimes we may find out that we are, sometimes we may find out that we aren't. So remember, it's never too late to change or reinvent yourself. I've been in some situations over the years where I've had to provide some career coaching to our employees within the agency. And a lot of times, some of the things that I shared offline with these individuals was that it's not about the work more so than the reputation and the attitude that comes along with it. You could be a stellar performer, but if nobody wants to work with you, if you're that cancerous person in your office, really what you're doing is you're crippling yourself, right? So it's never too late to change or reinvent yourself. If you find that, you're in a position where you need to do better, now is still the time to do better. So this is an interesting slide right here. Does anybody recognize this logo? Anybody in the room? Gucci, absolutely. So this slide is called From Generic to Gucci. And why I really like this slide, I've been told, I've never purchased Gucci myself, but I've been told that there are places that you can go and purchase Gucci for $2,500. You can buy a Gucci bag for about $2,500 these days. But I've also been told that there are places that you can go and purchase a Gucci bag for about $25, right? Obviously, that's a huge difference. $2,500 for a bag, $25 for a bag. They both say Gucci, right? What's the difference? The difference is the value that's placed on it. You can actually walk into a Gucci store and purchase an authentic and genuine Gucci bag and come out $2,500 lighter in your wallet. Or you can go around the corner and purchase 4 Gucci bags for $100, but the value is not the same. So what am I saying? I want us to think about this question. The value that a management is placing on us. Are they slapping that $2,500 value, which means that I value you so much that I'm going to place this high value on you. I'm going to trust you with my workloads and my assignments. I can't do this work without you. Or as the value that's being placed on us, hey, you know what? You're indispensable. You're a dime a dozen over here, right? I can get you and replace you 100 times over. You wouldn't even be missed if you left this office. What I really want us to think about, what's the value that's being placed on us, not only by management, but by our colleagues as well. If we are valued as Gucci employees, then it will show up in conversations. It will show up when it's time for promotion and opportunity. But if we're not valued as Gucci employees, then obviously we're indispensable and we can be replaced. And that shows up based upon the workloads and the conversations that people have from us. So we can go from generic to Gucci, but we really need to know ourselves what value is being placed on us by our colleagues and by our superiors. It's very important for us to understand that. This slide right here is all about brand recognition. Does anybody recognize this gentleman in the top left corner? We all should know who he is. Does anybody recognize his face in the audience? Mark Zuckerberg. Does that name sound familiar? Absolutely. We all know who Mark Zuckerberg is. Why? Because he's connected the entire globe. For anybody that's listening and you may not be familiar with the name or the face, this is one of the founders of Facebook. Why do we know Facebook? Because everybody has the app on their smartphone. If you buy a smartphone, whether you want to or not, Facebook is on your phone. So what is it, brand recognition about Mark Zuckerberg? What are some of the things that could be said? Some people could say he's a philanthropist. Some people could say, he's a huge visionary. Some people could say he's reckless with how he handles our data. His brand is all over the place. It could vary. Does anybody recognize this lady in the middle by face? Melinda Gates. We all know who her husband is, Mr. Bill Gates. right? What do we know about her? Obviously, they're, wealthy beyond belief, but they're philanthropists, right? They're huge into giving back. That's their brand. This gentleman in the top right-hand corner happens to be one of my favorite basketball players, LeBron James. He now plays for the Los Angeles Lakers. At one point in time, he was just branded as an athlete, but now he's also a philanthropist because what he's done is taken his wealth and he's opened up a school in his hometown. And not only has he opened up a school, the school it teaches and reaches out to over 1,100 students in that area. All of those children go to school for free on his dime. The parents of all of those children that live within walking and driving distance are employed on his dime. So he's taken his celebrity status as a basketball player and turned himself into a philanthropist. And he's also a family man as well. So that's his brand. I mean, we all recognize the pretty boy in the bottom left. Who is it? Will Smith, right? I mean, is there anything that we could say bad about Will Smith? He has an amazing life. He has an amazing family. The movies that he associates himself with are just, they're all blockbusters, right? His brand is basically everything that he touches turns to gold. There's nothing that we can say bad about Will Smith that I can think of. And that's what we want. We want that brand recognition. When you see Will Smith, even his smile right now makes you want to smile. That's how infectious it is. This lady in the bottom center, we recognize her, of course. She owns half the world. She's Oprah Winfrey, right? A billionaire, a philanthropist. She's an actress, right? What I know about her, she actually started climbing the ranks in Baltimore, Maryland, right where I'm from. She started at one of the local studios and just powered her way up the charts to owning Oprah and O and all kinds of things. Her brand is everything. She's everywhere now. And this lady at the bottom right-hand corner, this is Rosa Parks, right? What's her brand? What do we think about when we hear her? She was instrumental in the civil rights movement. She's the reason why, a lot of us can stand here today, correlated. So brand recognition is when somebody sees your face, when your name comes up in conversation. How do people feel? What are they saying about you? So let's take a look at some leadership qualities. Leaders lead with reward rather than grade, because one of the things of this presentation that I really want to drive home is that we want to brand ourselves in the workplace as leaders. We all have a leader within, so we don't necessarily need a leadership title to be considered a leader. Whether you're GS5 or GS15, you have leadership influence within you, with your colleagues, with your peers, with management. So you can lead up, you can lead sideways, or you can lead down. It's not about the title. But what do real leaders do? They lead with reward rather than threats. As you can see, they lead individuals and teams, so it can be one or the other. They empower others to find their own solutions. Leaders lead change rather than maintaining the status quo. And that's one of the things that I admire about Mark Zuckerberg. He didn't want to be status quo. He really saw value in what he was doing. He was offered billions of dollars to sell his company over the years, and he turned them all down. I don't know if I'm strong enough to turn down billions of dollars, but he was strong enough to turn down billions of dollars, and look what he's done. He's pushed the status quo so much so that, Facebook is basically on every continent. So that's the leadership qualities. You want to lead with reward. You want to be insight driven as well as logic driven. You want to be resilient under pressure. How many people know working in government pressure is going to come? We probably have some deadlines right now while we're here doing these 60 minutes. Pressures are going to be right there waiting for us at our desk as soon as we return. But we have to be resilient, right? We have to ask as well as tell. That's what a good leader does. They ask questions, but they also tell in times when they need to tell you what to do. So these are some questions to consider. How do others currently look at me? If you don't know the answer to this question, today is when I charge you and I challenge you to begin to have those difficult conversations, not only with just employees at work. How about friends and family? Because we want our brands to be consistent. So how I'm viewed at work hopefully should be in line with how I'm viewed at home. I don't want to be a superstar at work and then I go home and my wife and my children hate my guts, right? That's not what we want. How do others currently look at me? How large is the gap between where I am now and where I desire to be? And what do I need to change and why? These are questions for you to consider. I strongly suggest that you do that. What does your game plan involve? Clothing, behavior, and attitude, all of these things play a part. In my position as an HR specialist, I've reviewed a lot of resumes. I've reviewed the resumes of individuals that were outside of government trying to get their foot in. So I've seen tens of thousands of resumes. I've reviewed the resumes of our internal employees within my agency who had aspirations on getting promoted. So I've seen tens of thousands of resumes that way as well. And these are the things that I know to be true working in HR behind the scenes. Clothing should be appropriate at all times. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to come to work with a suit on. You could be a carpenter. You could be a mechanic for your particular agency. So you wouldn't necessarily come to work with a suit on, but your clothing should be appropriate. It should be neat. It should be clean. It should be pressed. Bad news travels faster than good news. Now, naturally, we're going to make a mistake or two here and there. And it's not about the mistakes that we make, but it's about how we handle those mistakes once they're made. Are we covering those mistakes up? Are we unprofessional when somebody brings something our way when we drop the ball? Or can we be resilient? Your attitude and your reputation precede you. If you are that cancerous person that works in your office right now and you have aspirations on being promoted somewhere else, guess what? They already know that you're cancerous over there. Why would they want to bring that cancer into their environment as well? So always be mindful that your attitude and reputation precede you. Consistency is key. We have to be consistent. Once we get to a place where we're comfortable in our brand and we're comfortable with people seeing who we are and they're saying those important and good things that we want them to say, we have to remain consistent. People are always watching us. So the main thing is, how will we show up? I'll share a story. There was a young lady on a Saturday morning. I ran into the Family Dollar to pick up something for my family. Saturday morning, it was like 8 o'clock. I had my ball cap on, some jeans and a t-shirt. And I turned around and this lady said, "Aren't you Reginald Gant?" Loud on a Saturday morning. And I turned around, she said my whole government name. So I'm like, we obviously know each other. "I want to send you my resume. I want you to take a look at my resume." I said, we can do that on a Monday, when I get back to work. But right now it's kind of like the weekend. I like to do the family thing on the weekend. Now imagine if I was rude to that lady. Imagine if she caught me on a bad day and what my brand would have been to her if I would have turned around and snapped at her for calling out my whole entire government name in front of a bunch of strangers. Or what if she saw me having an interaction with somebody that wasn't desirable, wasn't pleasant? Obviously, she knew who I was because she called out my entire name. So branding is being reminded that you are always on watch. Now, yeah, granted, it was a Saturday morning, but I still had to be professional. Even though I wasn't on SSA's dime, my reputation was everything. So I said, "Hey, you know what? I'd love to take a look at your resume. Send that to me on Monday because, we do the family thing on the weekends, and I hope that you out here enjoying time with your family as well." So we have to be mindful that people are always watching. How will we show up? These are some other questions that I want us to consider. What type of skills do I have and do I use? This allows you to identify if you're happy doing what you're doing. Are you in the best place possible to use your skills, your time, your talent, your gifts? If not, what can you do maybe in your downtime to begin to use your skills in such a way where you're adding value and you're feeling happy at the same time? Attitude and reputation, we talked about it earlier. All of these things play a part in branding yourself. In my agency, I do a lot of workshops and training on how to write a resume, how to interview, how to brand yourself. And what I've been really pushing lately is that it's not just about how great you look on paper. You can look stellar on paper. You can be a stellar interviewer, but if your brand is not matching, if someone picks up the phone and your manager is not backing you the way that they should, it does not matter how great you look on paper. It does not matter how well you interview. If you're getting a less than favorable regard from a colleague and or a superior, then that's a branding issue. So everything plays a part. You want to look great on paper, you want to interview, but you want to have a brand that's consistent with those things as well. So what does brand management means? Inconsistency is where brand confusion is created. So that goes back to that diagram that I had earlier with Mr. Brown and his outfit. That wasn't necessarily the best fashionable outfit possible. Now, had he had on a designer suit and, maybe some nice shoes and a nice pair of glasses, and I asked the same question, would you consider him to be your fashion consultant? We might have gotten a different response. But because, the brand wasn't really matching what we were asking him to do, it created some kind of confusion. So we have to be on at all times. We have to remember that we're a walking billboard. Now imagine if I came in here today and I was wrinkled. I was ashy. I looked like I just woke up and rolled out of the bed and just threw on whatever. And I came to talk to you guys about branding. What would that do to my brand? It would take my credibility all the way off the table. So we have to be mindful of that. Again, are you that generic employee or that generic leader? Or is somebody placing extreme value on you because they know you, they like you, and they can trust you? These are questions that we need to know. It all starts with your mind, to be the you that you were created to be, because we were all designed and created to be successful in whatever it is that we put our hands on. It starts with a mindset. This diagram right here says whether you think you can or think you cannot, you are right. So it starts with mindset. Affirmations. Are you building yourself up? What we put in comes out eventually. If you're putting in affirmations, if you're telling yourself, I can do this, I'm a winner, I'm strong, I'm successful, I'm resilient. If you're filling yourself up with affirmations, sooner or later, those affirmations are going to come out in your actions. They're going to come out in your behaviors. They're going to come out in your beliefs. Are you that person that goes the extra mile? That's how you add value. As a leader, and we're branding ourselves to be leaders in the workplace, no matter where we find ourselves, whether it's a GS5 or GS15, as I said earlier, it does not matter. If we are ones that go the extra mile, that says something about who we are and our brand, and don't necessarily always go the extra mile for what you can get out of it. Sometimes what I realize is it's all about what you can give. And if you give enough of yourself, your time and your talents, when opportunity comes your way, a lot of times we're able to step into those opportunities and receive because we've been giving and giving and giving. So to be the you that you were desired to be, start by filling yourself up with affirmations. Start by believing that you can versus believing that you can't. Because the second that you entertain the thought that you can't do something, you've already destroyed it and it's already over. So this is one of the gentlemen that I like to study. I read up on him a lot. I'm really big into personal development as well as my wife and our children. Zig Ziglar says, what you get by achieving your goals is not more important than what you become by achieving your goals. So I'll take it back to that story that I shared earlier when I was a young lad in the agency. And the gentleman had the corner office with the window and the suits and the nice cars. What I realized along life's journeys is that it's not about those flashy things, but it's about the person that you become along the way. So I've become that gentleman in the corner office minus the corner office. I don't really want the corner office responsibilities, but I've become that man in my agency that's reliable, that's dependable. People, they come to me all the time for advice, for guidance, for mentorship. I had to go through the journey of becoming somebody. And Zig Ziglar says, what you get is not more important than what you become. So I want us to all be mindful of that and remember that we are becoming every single day that we wake up. So we can become something great or we can become something else, but the choice is really ours. Real leaders, what do? They build networks and they build relationships. And when you remain consistent with your brand, people already know you, like you, and trust you. That's how business deals are done all the time. It's not necessarily about sitting down and interviewing each other for hours. If I know you, like you, and I trust you, we just really need to have a quick conversation. The deal is done. Kim and I, we've never met until today. For some reason, Kim heard about me, liked me, trusted me enough to share her platform, and here I am. And hopefully I'm doing a good job and she'll invite me back. And hopefully under the sound of my voice, I'm doing a good enough job that somebody else will invite me to their agency as well. And that's how it works. Leaders, they build networks, they build relationships. When you are consistent in who you are, getting help or making new connections becomes a lot easier, right? And your support system, because they really want to see you win, they'll help you achieve your goals any way possible. Real leaders volunteer to give back. Volunteering is mandatory. Wherever you are in life, giving back to others. What I've noticed is that those times in my life when I've really been struggling or being presented with challenges in my own personal life, when I take the attention off of me and I go out and I serve the homeless, for example, or I do something else and I'm taking the attention off of myself and placing it on somebody else, sooner or later what happens is I forget about my own problems. Or at least for the moment, I'm not thinking about my problems and I feel good again. So as leaders, Volunteering, what does it do for us? It allows us to get additional exposure. Additional exposure means that we went out opening up our network to other people. We're allowed to use our skills and our gifts in different settings. But volunteer also shows us as one who adds value. Anytime that we can add value to anybody or anything that we do, that increases our brand. And this is one of my favorite quotes at the bottom. When you see that the needs of others are met, your needs will be met. That's just how life works. So here's some words to live by. This is my own personal motto. Outside of the workplace, I'm an author. I have several books out. I even have a #1 Amazon best-selling book out right now. Dr. George C. Frazier was one of the authors. Les Brown, the world's #1 motivational speaker, was one of the authors as well. So it's an amazing book project. But this is what I tell myself and my children. Every day that we wake up, we choose to serve. Serve is an acronym. It stands for seek excellence, respect, value every day. Every day that we wake up, we have the choice to do a lot of things. And I tell my children, if you're going to do anything, be excellent at it. There's no need in being average. There's no need in being below average. If you are going to put your name on it, if you're going to put your energy into it, every day that you wake up, be excellent at that thing. Now, does that mean that you're going to be perfect all the time? Absolutely not. But you're going to strive for excellence. Every day that we wake up, respect the time allotted us. Unfortunately, somebody had plans yesterday on what they would do today, but they didn't wake up. But you and I are still here. So we have to respect the time that we have on this day, use our gifts and our talents and our skills and our abilities and give back and pour into somebody else to make them better. Every day that we wake up, add value. One of the things that I tell my children, things and people should be better after an encounter with you. And if you find yourself in a place and you're not adding any value, I really want you to ask yourself, why am I here? If you're not adding value in what you're doing or where you are, why are you there in the first place? So every day that we wake up, we choose to serve. Seek excellence, respect, and value every day. But if we have anybody that's on the phone, anybody that's on the webinar, and if you are in a leadership position, this is a different acronym that you can use for serve regarding your employees. Strive to empower, recognize, and value your employees. When we have leaders that turn around and they empower us, they recognize us for the good things that we've done. They add value to us by pouring into us and helping us along our journey. When we have leaders like that, what does that make us want to do? It makes us want to work harder. So as leaders, if you can strive to empower, recognize, and value your employees, you will have an engaged workforce. You will see productivity increase. So that's how you serve. This is Mr. Les Brown himself. I've had the privilege of training alongside him. I've had the privilege of writing a book with him. He says in every day there are 1,440 minutes. That means that we have 1,440 daily opportunities to make a positive impact. That's a lot of time. 1,440 daily opportunities to make a positive impact. One of the questions that I ask my family, my friends, anybody who knows me, what are you doing with your 1440? They already know what 1440 means. What are you doing with your 1440? That basically means, what are you doing with this 24 hours today? Are you wasting your 1440, or are you going to add value? Are you going to be excellent? Are you going to respect the 1440 given to you and go for the things that you said that you wanted? So here's our call to action. As professionals, we all need the following things: a clean and untarnished reputation that precedes us. And again, I said earlier, sometimes it's never too late to reinvent yourself. I've worked with some individuals over the years that were a little challenging to get along with. I knew it, they knew it, everybody else around them knew it. I've seen those individuals change themselves. And I've seen those individuals go from being the cancerous person that nobody wanted to be associated with to being the person that everybody goes to. It's possible. So for us as professionals, we need a clean and untarnished reputation that precedes us. Before people see us, sometimes they hear our name. They see our face. So we want to make sure that our name and our face is something that's positive in their minds. When somebody is talking about us, we want to make sure it's an affirmation and not something that's putting us down. We also need the following: a mentor or a personal board of advisors. I don't suggest just having one. I suggest having several. In my agency, I have individuals that look like me, African-American male, but I also have mentors who don't look like me. They're Asian, they're white, they're Hispanic. I want to get a global perspective. And what I realize is that we all look at the world through a different lens. So how I look at the world is different than how somebody else in this room might look at the world. It's different than how my mentor looks at the world. So when it's time for me to make a decision, if I can have a global perspective, it allows me to make the best decision for me at that particular time. So if you're listening and you're a leader, I encourage you to have a mentor, but I also encourage you to be a mentor. But also surround yourself with what I call your personal board of advisors. Those are the individuals that you can go to that will pour into you, that will share their mistakes and their pitfalls so that you don't have to make the same mistakes and pitfalls along your journey. Network equals net worth. That's what I've been told my entire life. If you're hanging out with non-broke people, chances are you are going to be number 10. That's what I've been told. If you are hanging around with non-millionaires, chances are you are going to be number 10. So who's in your network? Who knows you? Who needs to know you? And what can you do about that? Then I like to share this 30-second elevator pitch. So in the workshops that we do within my agency, I always like to get individuals comfortable with introducing themselves. So if you had that 30 seconds and you were in the elevator and Oprah Winfrey, for example, walked in and it's just you and her, what would you say to Oprah in 30 seconds to really capture her attention? You know, and it should be who you are, what you do, and why you're so passionate about what you do. I would encourage that you rehearse that because you never know when an opportunity comes. What I've realized is that opportunities, they don't go away. They simply just go to the next person that's prepared. So here are some discussion questions, and I'm not sure if we have time. We have a few moments. Can we discuss? Okay. So for anybody in the room that's bold enough today to answer any of these questions, let's start with question number 1. I mean, are they allowed to answer on? Okay.
So folks online can actually chat in your answers, and I'll be choosing some of your answers from the chat. But we'll start off with people in the room.
Okay. So question number 1 reads as such. How many of us can clearly articulate our brand right now in the workplace? Meaning that you know exactly what your colleagues are saying about you. You know exactly what management is saying about you. And you 100% agree with those things that are being said. Is there anybody in the room that would like to answer? Anybody on the lines that would like to answer? And this is a challenging question, right? This question really requires you to think because prior to today, this may have been information that really wasn't on your mind. And now that you've been exposed to it, today might be a good day to begin to have some of these conversations that we talked about. So again, I encourage you, have those dialogues with colleagues, have that dialogue with management, you know, find out the value that they're placing on you. You know, if they really feel that you're invaluable, then you'll get a sense of that from the conversation. But if they feel like you're replaceable, you'll get a sense from that from the conversation as well. Question number 2 says, what next steps can you take to solicit feedback from management and or colleagues? What I would say to that question is this: write down those responses, take a look at them, meditate on those things, begin to put a strategy in place. You may find that there are 1 or 2 things that they recommend that you begin to work on immediately in order to be seen as the person that you want to be seen as. So what you do with that information is that you write it down and you begin to strategize. Did we have a question?
So we just had a comment online.
Okay.
So online, someone said that you could request from your agency that they do a 360 evaluation. So getting feedback from your colleagues and your supervisor and things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, because I actually was the recipient of a 360 not too long ago. I want to say October or November for my agency, and it was very interesting because I sent it out to a slew of people. And when they give the answers back, I love it because it's anonymous, so you don't really know who's saying what. And I saw some things that I really needed to tighten up that I was not aware of. So the 360, if you have the opportunity to do that within your agency, I know that my agency had a particular budget in mind for it. There were funds available, so I was fortunate enough to be involved and to receive one. But again, what I learned was that there were some things that people saw in me that were stellar, But there were some things that people say, hey, you know what, Reggie, if you tighten up in just these 2 areas, these 3 areas, like you can really be up there. So the 360 was an excellent comment. I appreciate that.
And then we had another comment just saying that you could also request this information informally as well.
Absolutely.
And using feedback from coaches.
Absolutely. And then this final question right here says, how can your brand outside of the workplace affect your brand within the workplace? And what I'll share again is that story. When that lady screamed out my name on a Saturday morning, my brand was at stake. I could have turned around and said, hey, it's Saturday. Like, why are you bothering me? Why are you screaming out my whole government name? Leave me alone. But I had the choice to make. And in that choice, I said to myself, you know what? Hey, obviously this lady feels strongly enough. So the interesting thing was that I didn't share. The lady took a workshop of mine 2 or 3 years prior to that. And I had not seen her since then. So she remembered me from 2 or 3 years ago, which in one aspect is kind of like an honor that you've done something one time and somebody remembers you years later. So because she remembered me and she was asking for my assistance, I kind of took that as an honor. And I said to myself, you know what? Yeah, we'll go ahead and take care of that on Monday, but not on Saturday morning. But send me that resume on Monday if you can. I still didn't receive it yet. So I'm still waiting on that email from her.
We had one comment online saying that your image on outside media like Facebook and Twitter can also affect your image in the workplace as well.
Social media is everything. My wife and I, we do a lot of work. We give back. My wife is also an HR professional as well. We do a lot of free seminars and trainings throughout church for the community. And one of the things that we always educate the youth on, and this is not just for youth, this is for adults as well. Social media presence is everything. There's a T-shirt out that I saw a couple of days ago, and it said, be who you post to be, P-O-S-T. And it's kind of a slick way of saying be who you are supposed to be. But be who you post to be means be that person that you are posting on social media and be that person in real life. Don't let the two be different. So if you're only posting, you're living a good life, you're successful, make that be who you are in real life. Don't have that be fakery, because I've seen images and I've seen individuals, and I personally know some individuals that what they post is not necessarily always in line with who they are, and that's brand confusion. And when enough people are confused about who you are, that's not really what we want, ideally. Do we have any other comments?
We had one comment about being authentic and showing up as you are.
As you.
Your brand is an authentic brand.
Absolutely.
We had another question about, are there other tools similar to the 360 analysis, since not everyone has access to 360?
The 360 is what I know right now. Excuse me. Allow me to do some research, Kim, when I get back to my office, and I can research some similar metrics and things of that nature, and I can send you some, and maybe you can disperse those to the attendees today. Nothing comes to mind right now, but just allow me to do a little bit of research, and I'll totally answer that question. So I'll just move on to this next slide and say, hey, let's stay connected. My name is Reginald Gant. I do work for the Social Security Administration's our headquarters office is located in Woodlawn, Maryland. My colleague and I, we travel. We actually do this workshop at other places. We've done it for other associations, other agencies. For anybody that wants information, if anybody wants the slides, can they get the slides from you directly?
Yes, so the slides were sent out. Everyone who registered
They already have
received a link to the slides. If you have any issues with that, let me know, and I'll be posting the video on YouTube in about a week. One thing I was just thinking of as far as the 360, because that does actually cost money as far as the different 360 options out there. You could do something if the people you're asking feedback from are all in the same location. You could have a box and have people type out their feedback and just put it in the box.
That's nice. So. Absolutely. Yeah, anonymous, it helps. It helps the ego, because now you can maintain your friendships while still finding out what your deficiencies are without getting mad at the actual individual that said it. So I think that's a wonderful idea. So Kim, with that, I really appreciate this opportunity. I'd like to say is if there's any more questions, I'd love to field one or two more.
Are there any questions in the room? The room has been very quiet today. So
the room has been taking it all in.
Do you have a question? Oh, here's a question. If you could use the mic just to push the button to engage it. There you go. And if you could announce yourself and your agency.
Hi, I'm Lisa Thompson from the Social Security Administration. Reggie, how do you keep such a great attitude when getting feedback? A lot of times I find people are intimidated.
That's a great question. So again, it's mindset. One of the things that I've done over the years, I've built thick skin. And I realized that business is business, personal is personal. So when I'm giving feedback, I understand that it's constructive criticism, but I also weigh the source as well. If I understand that a person is not just negative towards me, but they're negative towards everybody, then I know how to weigh that advice, that suggestion, that feedback. But I don't really take things too personal. I've built myself up to the point whereas I know that I'm not perfect. So if you have a way that I can improve, I'm open to hearing about it. I might not necessarily agree. I don't necessarily have to agree, but I'm willing to hear you out because that's a sign of maturity. So being confident in who you are, but also understanding the source of that criticism or that feedback is important to know as well. Sometimes some people just won't like you. I've realized that. I've been in situations where people, I've delivered, I've provided high value, and people would just say, I just don't like you. And that's just how it is because we're human beings and nobody's perfect. It's not personal for me. Business is business.
We had one last question, which does relate to branding as far as how do you effectively balance work-life challenges and maintain a good brand?
Absolutely. So here's the simplest way for me to answer that question. When I'm off the clock, I'm off the clock. I have colleagues, they take the work home, and sometimes you have to, but I try not to make that a habit. So when I'm working 9 to 5 or 6 to 2:30 or 7 to 3:30, when I'm off, I'm off. My weekends are my weekends. You know, family time is family time. You really have to prioritize. We really have to create boundaries. We really sometimes have to say no. And no doesn't necessarily mean, no forever. No just means like not right now. So creating those boundaries, learning when to say no, being off the clock means being off the clock, prioritizing. Those are the ways that I maintain work-life balance. And I literally do not take work home. That's too much. Because when I go home, I have a wife and 4 children. Like, when am I going to have time to do work? That's work. Our baby is 3.5 months. I'm not getting sleep for anybody that used to parent newborns. You feel my concern. We're not getting proper rest. So how can I take work home, deal with my wife and 4 children, deal with lack of sleep, and then still perform at a high level? Something has to give. And in that situation, work is work. And when I'm home, it's family time. And that's how I balance. And that would be my recommendation.
Thanks so much. Any last questions? There was one question about SES and whether maintaining a balance is one reason why being an SES may be difficult as far as maintaining a work-life balance.
For me, that's one of the main reasons why I decided to take SES off the table. I personally know several of my friends who shot up the ranks. They were 15s quickly. They entered into the SES and they put in long hours, 12-hour days, 13, 14-hour days. And I decided a long time ago that that's not really what I wanted. That wouldn't make me happy. The money would be great. So I decided to put my priorities in order. I would much rather have my time and my freedom and my family, and I would make the money up in a different way. So for me, SES had to be taken off the table. Anything that's going to take away from my life part, the enjoyment and fulfillment that I get with being with family and friends, kind of had to take a backseat for me personally. So everybody has to make that determination for themselves. If you're a single person and you can chase it, I would say go for it if that's what you really want. But we all have to prioritize what's important. And for me, family is important. The time that I spend with them is important. So an 8-hour day, maybe a 9-hour day is the max that I can offer at this time.
Thank you so much. And when I send out a link to the YouTube video next week, I'll also attach an appendix that I sent out about a year ago to the listserv, which includes information on various assessments, 360 assessments.